Hi everyone, and welcome back to Waterhouse Forde. Well, you can see I've got my woolly hat on. It's been quite cold here in the UK. Now, well, everything's relative. One of our subscribers, Charles from Canada, has been commenting on, he's been working through our videos basically from the start, and he's currently up to somewhere around 98, video number 98 I think. But he has commented on a few of those videos about the weather over there where they are, and he's talking about minus 35 degrees C, which is unimaginable. I remember many years ago going skiing in Canada and it was minus 20 and I almost didn't make it. So how the heck you deal with minus 35, I've got no idea. But yeah, look, we've had temperatures of about minus 5 kind of first thing in the morning, which of course for us is pretty cold. Looks like this week's going to be slightly milder but still nippy and still cold. So yeah, but anyway, hopefully soon we'll be through the worst of it. And we'll be looking forward to spring and summer and, yeah, nice long days and all of that good stuff. But anyway, we're here today. I got my woolly jumper on, and hopefully you'll excuse that. But look, today what we're going to work on is the steering box. We're back to the steering box. I believe I've now got all the parts that we need to reassemble the steering box, the steering gear lever, the gear lever assembly and all of that. So look, I think probably over this video and perhaps the next, we'll see how we get on. We're going to reassemble the box, put the top steering arm on, a steering shaft essentially, and that whole assembly with the two bearings. That's where our problem was. We found our problem in there. The bearings were really manky, but of course we carried on and we went through the whole box. The rest of the box actually looked okay. You remember that one of the seals on the left hand side of the tractor as you're sitting on the seat, that was weeping, so we do have new seals. Struggled to find them. Well, I say struggled, I knew I could get them, but I thought and I was hoping that I could get them from Anglo, but unfortunately they looked and they spoke to some of the manufacturers, but they weren't able to get it in the end. So yeah, look, in the end we got the ones that look original, so they look like the originals, but they've actually got a proper oil seal, or a modern oil seal let's call it, inside instead of the original which was a leather seal. But they definitely look the part, and anyway, I'll take you over there and show you that in a minute. Anyway, so let's get going. Okay, so what we've got here, the main thing obviously is these the gaskets. We've got two of those, one for above the tin plate and one for underneath essentially, and that's Anglo part A90271. We've also got from Anglo, we also got the chrome washer that goes on top just underneath the steering wheel. So we're a little way away from that, but it's there when we need it. We've got a new spring fibre washer and tin plate that sits underneath the cap that goes again just under the steering wheel, and you see we also managed to get a new gear lever knob. Our old one was quite corroded and would have required quite a bit of polishing, so in the end I decided to splash out and get a new one. But then over here, and perhaps certainly what we're going to be working on today, we've got the two seals for the steering box where the drop arms come out, and you can see those are in the form of the originals, but this is a rubber insert that they've got in here, so very similar to your modern oil seals that you get today. And that was the other option. There is an oil seal that will fit there, but it just doesn't look the part. So I did want to try to get these. I'll put a link to Bundy Bear's video here. He actually has made new inserts. He basically turned them on the lathe and he put two O-rings inside. I think it was two. and that obviously is another route to go if you've got that kind of facility. Whilst I have a lathe, I certainly don't trust myself to get it right. I don't think that my turning skills are anywhere near what they would need to be in order to get that sufficiently accurate. So I decided to go this route instead. And then we've got the two bearings, top and bottom. They're the same bearing, but one for the top, one for the bottom, which sit and which basically hold the main steering shaft. So the one that the steering wheel connects to, and it drops down, and then where it enters the steering box, you've got one that sits underneath and one that sits on top. And we'll get you need to get the bearing pretension correct on that. So we'll show you how to do that in a minute as well. But yeah, so in fact I think that's what we'll start with. We'll start with the top. We'll get that shaft in, get these bearings in, get that all set up. We won't be able to do the final pretensioning. I think we'll give it a go, but the final pretension on the bearings will be done once the whole box is reassembled. But we can do it at least at an initial setting. Once that's done, we'll move on to inserting the seals and reassembling the steering box, getting the tin plate on at least. And that might be as far as we get today. We'll see. If it goes well, then we'll carry on and we'll get the steering box onto the tractor. But I think for now we'll probably aim just to get the steering box reassembled. So that'll be, yeah, I think that'll be today's video. Okay, we're back over at the vise now, because it's going to be easier, I think, to do this in the vise. But just very quickly, let's look at the parts that we've cleaned up. So the first thing is the shaft. You can see we've given that a good clean. Main thing was to get this channel cleaned out over here. As I said, when we dismantled, the actual gear itself looks perfectly fine. And even now when it's clean, we can see that that's in really good shape. This surface here has been polished up a little bit, as has this over here. It may not look like it, but that is nice and smooth. It's quite stained, but it's certainly smooth. And look, that's the bit that's in the top, just underneath the steering wheel, and it does unfortunately get a bit of water and stuff in there, and it does therefore suffer from a bit of pitting and corrosion. But you know, it's certainly still very serviceable. Cleaned up the threads, made sure that they were all nice. So the first job, sorry, before we move on then, just in terms of the casing or the housing, you can see we've given that a really good clean as well. Inside this side and then also this side, got rid of all of that sealant that was on here, and we'll talk about that when we come to putting this back on. But most importantly, cleaned up inside here and then just inside there, which was really just full of dust, so nothing too major. Whilst I was here, we still have the accelerator lever connected here. So whilst I was cleaning, I took the opportunity just to lift it up, put a little bit of grease in the bottom of this. Don't know if you can see this. Why is it not? There we go. Just put a little bit of grease, lifted the lever up, put a bit of grease in the bottom there, and then also in the top here as well, just to make sure that that's moving nice and freely, which it now is. Okay, so let's move on. Well, let's get going. The first job we want to do, if you think about the bottom, so this shaft goes in this way, sits inside there, and obviously is supported by the bearing. Now what we want to do first off is get the inner race of the bearing onto the shaft, because that does need to be encouraged on. Now this is a 3-part bearing, okay? You don't get these from any old bearing place. It's quite strange in the sense that this inner race is actually what I would call custom. It's not your normal bearing race, and that's because it needs to sit just under that gear, and also at the top it needs to sit just under the nuts. Your actual ball or roller bearing cage is separate, and then of course you've got your outer race, which is fairly standard. although it's actually quite a low height here, if you see what I mean. Believe me, I've been looking at standard bearings to see if I could find a standard bearing that would work, and there just isn't one, so you do have to buy these. Okay, now the way this goes on is that in a race has to be bumped onto the shaft right up until it's sitting just underneath that gear. So obviously we'll bring it in from this side. You can see it's a little bit tight on there, and it will get a little bit tight on there as well. So we're going to do this in the vase just very gently, and we're going to obviously use a fair amount of oil, but it just needs a little bit of encouragement. I don't think it's going to take a lot to get it in. So what I'm going to do is just stand the shaft in the vase like that and get this just supported. We're not going to go very tight, we just want it to stand. I'll get my oil can and just give this a lot of oil around the shaft. It'll all run down and can oil the bottom whilst it's all running down, but we just want to make sure we've got oil all the way around there inside the race, although it comes with a fair amount of engineering oil on it. And we'll just encourage that down. Now we might be lucky. No, thought it might just twist on, but it won't. So we just got a nice soft punch. This one's sort of aluminium, and so we'll just encourage this down. It was going nicely, and now it seems to have stopped. There we go. There we go. Okay, right, so hopefully you can see this better now. So right, we've got it all the way down. Now we want to get it up onto this shoulder here. I think it's going now. So we'll get our punch so that we don't damage this. Listen, I think I'm going to take this over to the press and do it in the press. I think that's going to make it go on a lot straighter. Okay, well look, that took quite some doing actually, and I'm not sure that I would have been able to bump it all the way down. It took not all, but almost all of the press's power to get that all the way down. But look, it's nicely home now, right up against the gear. That's what we need. So yeah, we'll just give that a bit of a wipe now. Lots and lots of oil, but it is now nicely home. Okay, next job is to get the race into the bottom of this housing. So we will gently rest this in the vase. Just so that it's supported. Give that a, make sure that's 100% clean inside. Right, now the race obviously needs to go with the fat side down, because the shaft is going to come in from this side. Now again, I'm hoping that this will bump in. If it doesn't, again, I'll take it over to the press and bump it in. There we go. It's not quite home yet, but it's down. I think I'm going to try and get a drift for that. There we go. Perfect. I believe that is all the way down. Okay, so that's now nicely home. We'll give that a little wipe with a clean cloth, just to make sure that the race is nice and clean. We don't leave any or have any foreign objects on there. Right. Now the next job is to bring the, well actually I think what we're going to do, we're going to put the race in on the other side as well, because otherwise, well, because we need to be banging it, we need to have that done before we move on. So we'll just rest that there for now. Again, we'll just make sure there's a little bit of a burr there. I just want to try and get rid of that. Just want to give the race the best chance of getting in there, and just make sure that this edge is slightly chamfered. This is a soft alloy, so there's no, yeah, it's not difficult, and you don't need to go mad with it. Just gently with a file. In this case it's a half round file, just to, it definitely helps obviously with the profile. It's definitely slight burr there. It's quite, well I say slight, it's actually quite pronounced. It's a very soft casing, and it obviously doesn't stand up to a lot of abuse. That's better, much better. Right, let's get the other race in. Now again, the fat side of the race goes down. We'll give that some oil. There we go. Fat side of the race down. There we go. That's it. Right, now I've messed up. We were supposed to have put this little tin shield in underneath that, and I forgot about it, so I'm going to have to try and get that race out again. Hopefully nice and gently. Okay, so let's try that again. So as I said, there is this tin shield that needs to go in underneath that bearing, or underneath the race. Now this has a slight sort of profile to it. It's a concave I suppose, and the concave, or the lower side goes down, is my understanding. Now before we put that on, I just want to show you the purpose of that is to provide a very close seal around this shaft, to prevent water and dirt, dust and whatever going down there. So it's just another means of trying to seal this off, so that if you get water in the top, yeah, sure, you're going to get it in your top bearing, but you won't get it into your bottom bearing, and more importantly, you won't get it into your steering box. Now, we all know that these boxes are notorious for getting water in them, so I don't know how well that actually works, but it's important and it's there. Now, what I've done in order to try to get a really close fit here, you can see that that's literally, well, hopefully you can see, but that's as close as I can get it. What I did, a little trick I suppose, I flattened this out completely just with a hammer on the vase. Tested it, so then it actually, that inner hole is too small, that shaft will struggle to go through there. And then I obviously got a round, you know, a drift. Put that on, and then just with the peening side of the hammer, just peen the inside down, back down again. Just testing it all the time until got a fit there that I'm happy with, where it'll go on, but it's as close as I dare without it catching, if you see what I mean. And it's literally borderline there now. But I'm hoping that will hopefully give us a good seal. Okay, so right, let's get some more oil on this again. Right, that is nicely oiled, and now we can bump it back in. And that is right down against the tin shield, so lovely. Okay, right, the next thing we can do now is just make sure we don't have any foreign objects in there. Right, now we can put our shaft in. Now, the first thing we want to do is, again, just make sure that everything is clean. Okay, and then let's do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so now we've got the shaft. Obviously we've got the race back here. What we want to do is bring that inner race, or inner bearing rather, the cage, the bearing cage, in up against there, and then bring it into the housing. But of course we want to put some grease on this, so let's get some of my favorite substance. I've got a new grease now, my old one has run out, so I had to get a new one. And I'm just going to put a bit of that. It's a nice white one, which apparently works better, so we'll see. I'm sure that that's not right, but anyway. Just give that a good greasing. Oh, it's very sticky. Alright, so that's now greased all the way through, as you can see. We'll pop that onto the shaft like that, and then we'll bring the shaft in through that hole in the top, and bring it in. So there you go. I've just brought that down, sorry, I've just brought that in on the shaft into that race, and there it sits, and you can see already that's feeling nice. Feels like it wants to turn nicely. Right, now we want to do the top, and we want to hold that in so that it doesn't fall out, and we're going to pop that in the vase, just like so, and we just want to support it. We don't want to damage the casing in any way. It is just soft aluminium. Okay, now we can bring this next one down. So again, we'll give the inner cage a good greasing. There we go. That is well greased. We'll pop that down in there, and we can bring the top race down, which is now the inner race effectively, and you can see that that doesn't quite want to go in there. Well, we can use the nuts, but what I want to do, I want to just give that a little tap, because that doesn't feel like it's gone all the way down to me. There we go. Okay. What we've got now, we've got this oh goodness, lock plate and 2 nuts that go on here. Now, I've seen people do it different ways. When we took this off, both so we had the lock tab right under at the bottom, and then both nuts. When I was watching, I think it was Bundy Bear, when he was doing his, he put 1 nut down and then the lock plate and then the other nut, and to me that makes a lot more sense, so I'm going to do it that way. Okay, that's almost all the way down. Now you can see that the whole shaft started turning there, so it's starting to get tight. Okay, so I'm just holding the gear at the bottom here with a pair of pliers, and what we want to do is tighten that nut up as much as we can. My pliers are not holding. Hang on, need something bigger. Where are my big ones? Now what we want to do is tighten this up, because we want it to force the bearings to settle. And before we go all the way, we're just going to keep turning this to help everything to align. And that is definitely not lining up there. I think we might have this. I think that tin shield might be pushing it slightly off, but let's see how we go. Now it's definitely starting to tighten up now. I can't turn it by hand. And now it's loosening up again. Yeah, that tin shield is definitely it's not an exact fit in that housing, and so it can go slightly off center, and that pushes the whole shaft off, of course. But it will move if you when you force it to. Oops. So we're going to tighten up just a little bit more. We don't want to cause any damage. Okay, that's really tight now. Well, it's tight enough, put it that way. It's not, I don't think it's going to cause any damage to any of the races or bearings or anything, but it is tight. And we can see, well, I can see now that that shaft is nicely centralized, so that's a good thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to back it off ever so slightly. And maybe a little bit more actually. Okay, so now it's a very firm, well, it's a nice and firm fit, if you see what I mean. So it's feels very consistent all the way around. It's not spinning freely like a fidget spinner or anything like that, but it's not too, it's not too loose either, because if it's too loose, it you'll end up with uneven wear on the bearings. So you do want that, as we said at the start, that kind of sort of pre-tension on the bearings. Very similar to wheel bearings. So when you're doing wheel bearings, you tighten it up till the wheel won't move or the hub won't move, and then you back it off a little bit. There we go. I'm reasonably happy with that, I think. Right, let's check the bottom. So we can see the bottom now. Well, hopefully you can see that, yeah. That bearing is running true. What you're looking for is that in a race, if it's canted to one side, then you know that everything, there's something's not in alignment. But this one, this feels absolutely. Oh, that went tight. What happened? Well, that seems absolutely fine. I might just do that again, tighten it and then back it off again. I just want to make absolutely sure, because there was just one spot there where it got tight and then it seemed to loosen up again. It's as if one of the rollers came out of its place, which is concerning because it really shouldn't at this point. So we'll just tighten that up. Okay. And now, come on. So I can't hardly turn it by hand. I have to use the pliers. So it's quite tight. And again, it's loosened up a little bit. Okay, just try and tighten it a little bit more. There we go. Okay, now we'll back it off. Now I want to measure, so if I go, that's 1/6. It feels good on the pliers, but maybe a little too tight on the hand, so we'll just take it another 1/2, if that makes sense, which is there. Yeah, you see, and that makes a huge difference. So what I mean by 1/6 is basically, so 1/6 is 1 flat. So at the moment this flat at the top here is horizontal. If I turn the nut to where the next flat is horizontal, then I know that I've turned it 1/6 of its rotation. So I did that, and that wasn't quite right. So then I turned it so that the next high side or point of the nut is pointing up. So that would be essentially 1/2, or I guess 1/3. So if you want to think of it that way, we've now turned it 1/3, I think. So, you know, 1/3 and, I don't know, my maths is not great, 1/9. No. Anyway, point is 1 flat and a half, and that seems to feel, you know, to me that now feels really good. It's consistent all the way around. There's absolutely no play. Feels lovely. Okay, we're going to move on. This has taken a lot longer than I thought it was going to, so we're going to move on now to the oh no, hang on, we can't move on. We need to put the lock tab and the other nut on. So very quickly, lock tab on. It used to have a key which ran in this slot, but that has long since gone. So that's it there. Now obviously one of these tabs is quite badly damaged. I'm going to try to avoid using it and use 2 of the others. Now what you do is you basically lock one down and one up, so one locks, so basically the 2 nuts are locked together. That's what you're looking for. You want to make sure when you bring this top one down that it doesn't add any more sort of load or tension to the whole setup, but it shouldn't. And all you want is for that to be firm against essentially against the lock washer. So you can see that that's still turning lovely there. That nut is tight. All we've got to do is pop one of these tabs down and another one up, and that whole thing is now locked in. Okay, great. Look, I'm going to leave that there. I mean, obviously the other thing we've got here is the little key, but I'm going to put that away until it comes time to put the steering wheel on, because I don't want that falling out and getting lost. So, right, let's move on to the steering box. Let's talk quickly about these components. So as you can see, we've done a thorough clean inside here. We've also now just covered it with red oxide. Now, some of the, when you remember when we took this apart, there was a lot of junk in the bottom of this box, so on the bottom of the plate, sitting on the plate. What you might note is there's a lot of corrosion has gone on as well on the inside here. Excuse me, and I do think some of that stuff that was lying in the bottom is actually essentially parts of the case. So I've tried to clean that out as much as I can, loosen as much of the, or get rid of the loose stuff as much as possible. I've tried to get red oxide right inside all of those little crevices, and I'm hoping that that's going to help it to well, to protect it and to stop that corrosion. You'll notice that I obviously covered all the gasket surfaces so that we don't get paint on that. We want those to be nice and smooth, and obviously to make a good seal. I've done exactly the same on the tin plate. You can see covered off the areas where it's going to seal, and then I've painted the bit that isn't going to be, or that is going to be exposed essentially, and that's on both sides. So this is the inside. We know that because of these indentations where they mate with these indentations on the case. So that goes that way essentially. And so when this is on the tractor, essentially this is facing the inside of the gearbox. So any condensation that might be going on inside there is going to collect on this surface here, and so that's why I wanted to get that protected as well. So that's that. The other thing I noted whilst cleaning, do you remember we talked about how these half moon, half crown, whatever you want to call them, gears, they are the same part, they look the same, but the shafts are different, and it turns out that my shafts had actually been stamped. So although I made a note on this one, I put a mark on there that is the one that's the left hand side of the tractor when you're sitting on the seat. Actually these have been stamped properly, I might add, as in with a proper stamp, with an R on the face of that one and an L on the face of that one, so very clearly marked. So that's great news. So I didn't really need to worry with that, but good that it kind of confirms it. Okay, let's get these seals in. So the first thing we're going to do is well, first of all we want to make sure that this is all very, very clean inside there. Now you will recall I talked a little bit about it when we were dismantling. It turns out that, or what seems to me, the reason why this one seal was leaking was that someone had attempted essentially what's regarded as an in the field repair, as in replace the seal by pushing it over the drop arm. But also what that meant is they probably didn't get this very clean in here, because when we took the old seals out there was very obvious dirt inside there still. So yeah, we're gonna, obviously we're doing it the right way. We have the luxury of being able to dismantle the whole thing. You know, when the tractor just needs to be working, you know, one can understand the urgency and the need to just get it going, but we're not in that situation, so we can do it properly, take our time and do it properly. So yeah, these are the seals. Again, we'll just make sure that they are clean. And I think what I might do is put a bit of oil on them as well. I don't know how tight a fit this is going to be, but I'm hoping we can basically just bump them in with a wooden mallet. There we go. So that's that one. We'll do the other side. Now again, I'm not doing bushes on this box. The bushes are absolutely fine. There's absolutely no play in the shafts at all. Tested all of that, checked them with just the shafts in, and they are fine. And to be honest, again, this is not a very heavily, the bushes are not taking a huge load, right? They're not under a lot of strain or stress, so it's not surprising that they are in good shape. And I don't see the point in replacing. They look really, number one, they look to be in really good condition, and they look quite original as well, which is quite nice. So I don't want to just replace them for the sake of replacing them when they certainly don't need it. You know, and if push comes to shove and we need to do this job again in, I don't know, 5-10 years time, then so be it. It's not a difficult job. You'll recall when we started this, I said that I've never done this before, as in I've never worked on the steering box of a Ferguson before, but I have to say I've quite enjoyed it. It's a very simple mechanism, seems to be, I mean, it's very robust, everything is nice and solid and pretty chunky. The only thing I don't like is the fact that this casing is alloy, and it does seem to suffer a little bit, but other than that, it seems like a really good design. You can definitely hear the change in tone when it goes home, which is lovely. Okay, right, now the next job really is to get these shafts in. Now we need to think about this. So this is the orientation, right? So that's the front of the tractor, this is the back, here's our gear lever, etc. So this is the left hand side and this is the right hand side. So this is our left set, so we'll start with the left hand side. Okay, so what we're going to do now is first and foremost get some oil. In fact, I'm going to use some grease on that seal, that rubber inside there, and that's obviously to help get the so for the shaft to be able to go through as easily as possible. I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on the bearing, on the bush as well, just to give it a bit of a head start whilst we're assembling, because of course we don't have any oil in this box yet. Okay. Right, now what we want to do, I'm going to put some oil on this as well, especially on these splines, although they are a very slightly smaller diameter than this shaft, which is where the seal will run. So hopefully they won't cause any problems as they're going in, as long as you do it as straight as possible and really just be gentle. So the other thing to make note of is where is the cutout for your bolt. To keep things simple, I'm going to try, let me see, this is going to go that way. Yeah, so I want to try and keep that facing down if I can. Okay, so that's in. Now it's gone too far because we've got to get this on, but the point is that it's in. So now I can turn it around. Now what I want to do is get this half moon in that kind of orientation, so the bolt is at the bottom and of course the gears are up at the top where they need to be. So we'll bring that back up. And bring that in. back down. That one doesn't want to go. I think it might be a bit skewed this way. Got to find that master spline. It should be here somewhere. There it is. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so now we can put the bolt on, or the bolt through rather. Now remember, one side has the cutout to hold the head of the bolt, so you know that goes on that side, and then you've got a split washer, a spring washer and a nut. So we'll get the washer on first, and then the nut. There it is. Right, now I'm going to get the other one on, and then we'll tighten them both up. Okay. I think this time what I'm going to try and do is get the gear in first. I probably should have done that for the other one as well. So like I say, I think on this one I'm going to get the gear in first and then bring the arm in. Pretty sure I've got it there. Why won't it go in? There we go. There we go. And now we can get the bolt in. Okay, I've tightened those up now, and as you can see, I've also put some gasket sealer all the way around here. Now, for two things. One, if this video is a little bit bitty, it's because I'm stopping the video, putting the heater on, and then warming the workshop back up, and then carrying on, and that's because the heater makes too much noise for filming. But yeah, so if this seems a bit bitty, that's the reason why. Second thing, for somebody who doesn't like using gasket seal, I seem to be using a heck of a lot of the stuff recently, but but it's really around this galvanic corrosion that we talked about a little bit when we were reinstalling the radius rods. And as you can see, we've definitely got very real example of it going on here, partly because of the condensation, partly because this plate which goes in now is steel and this is aluminium, and you're getting that galvanic corrosion happening between the two. Now in this instance we have a gasket, a paper gasket, which should provide the separation that we want, except for the fact that it doesn't seem to be. No, well, because I think because if you get a little bit of moisture in here, then obviously it can bridge that paper gasket, and that's where I think you may be getting the corrosion. So I'm hoping with a combination of the red oxide paint and this sealant, at least on this side, that's going to help this thing to seal. Right, so we're going to bring our gasket in, which as I said at the start is A90271. So there we go. So if we have a quick look at this, you can see we've got the holes for the bolts. So these are the bolts that hold the case, the steering box onto the tractor. These are the little holes for these small screws that go and hold the tin shield on. Now the interesting thing is that they've actually made it, no they haven't, sorry. So you have to make sure you get this the right way around, because those little holes are only on one side. Let me put this down in its place roughly, and then I can show you what I mean. So you see you've got a little hole there for the screw on this side, but there are no little screws on this end of the box. They're all around here, which is where it needs to seal the oil inside the steering box. So that's why you've got those going on there. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's as close to lined up as possible before we put the tin plate on. I think that's probably it there. And so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of grease on this side of the gasket now, just in case we need to take this off for any reason, which although that sealant that I've used is non-hardening, I don't know, I've never had to take a gasket off before where I've used that, so I don't know how easy it is to do that, so I'm not taking a chance here. I want grease at least on one side. I like this grease. If you're interested in the brand, it's Triple QX. I don't know where I got it from. Got it many months ago. Okay, now before we put that on, let me get the screws ready. So I've had these screws tucked away in a little box with the springs that that go on the oh god, what do you call them? The on the gear selector indent. Anyway, I've got those springs safely stored in here along with these little screws. So yes, the indents for the gear selector. Now, oh, that's the other thing with these screws are metal, right, and they're going to go into aluminium. So again, that sealant that I've put on, I've tried to get it into the holes where these screws are going in, so that it's providing a little bit of separation there again as well. Okay, so now we can pop this plate on. Get it roughly lined up, and we'll get, I think what we'll do is we'll put this bottom screw in first just to hold it. I'm not tightening yet, I'm just so that the countersink starts to take a grip on the corresponding countersink in the plate, because that's what helps you with alignment. So we'll do the same at the top now. And then maybe these in the middle. And now we can just put them all in and tighten them up. And there we go, that is now closed up. And there we go. Okay, I think the final job that we're going to do probably today really is just to install these adjustment nuts. Not adjustment nuts, but they take up the well, I suppose they're guards, right? So they push against these two gears. You can just see the gears inside there, I think. You can just see the two half-moon gears there. And what they do is they run up against the back of those, because when the steering shaft comes in and that gear engages with these two gears, that dog gear, it's and when it turns, it's going to want to, as it turns, it's going to want to push that one out that way and this one out that way, right? So they're going to land up doing this or that. And what these guards do is they basically, first of all, they stop them from moving, so they resist that force. But also what they do is they adjust the distance between these two half moons ever so slightly, to keep them, and basically to take up any slack between the two gears, or essentially the three gears, if you want to think of it that way. So it's basically adjusting your, I suppose it's almost like a dwell angle. I don't think that's the right term. I can't think of the right term right now, but it basically takes up the slack between those two gears. Right, so now again, these are steel bolts, so we need to put some sealant on them. What I'm going to do is just turn the lock nuts up to the top, rather. Okay, and then with our favorite gasket sealer, Loctite 5922, which is supposed to be non-hardening, we're just going to put a bit of that on all the way around. Not too thick, because it's just going to get squeezed out anyway. I'll just do it with my fingers. I don't know what this stuff is, but it's very sticky. It sticks to your skin and doesn't come off too easily. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's good stuff. Right, let's get that in there. Now, of course, you want it to be non-hardening because these things need to be adjustable, right? So you don't want it. Now, I'm not going to put them all the way in at this point, because the when we bring the steering box down, it's going to want to push those out. You see? So I wanted to be able to do that initially. Now, I think this is probably the end. Well, this is the end of the video for today. I think in the next video what we're going to do, I think we're going to mount this onto the tractor, get this in first, and then we will put the top on. I think it's going to be easier when it's on the tractor to do that than to try and do it on the bench. I suspect it's going to be very difficult to manage on the bench. So yeah, that'll be the next video. We'll get it mounted, and then we'll get the top on and basically just finish off. Okay, so these, obviously we don't want to push them in all the way. We want these these arms to be able to move in and out to get to the right position for as we bring the top on. It's going to push the dog gear needs to determine the distance between them. So yeah, we're going to leave those quite open for now. I think this one can come out a little bit more. And well, I think we're going to leave it there for today. I think that's now done. That's the bottom of the whole of the steering box and the bottom part of the assembly. Next week we'll get onto the top. As I say, we'll get this mounted onto the tractor, and then we'll bring the top in and get it sorted that way. I think that's going to be a lot easier than trying to do it here on the bench. It's going to be very unwieldy and very unmanageable. So anyway, hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you all on the next video. Cheers for now.